Today, we're tackling the productivity of doing nothing. It's a fantastic, highly relatable, and honestly pretty sarcastic critique of modern burnout, the self-help industry, and this relentless, exhausting pressure we all feel to constantly improve ourselves. Okay,
The author hooks us right out of the gate with what seems like a really simple question. When was the last time you wasted an afternoon? Now seriously, I want you to really think about that for a second. We live in a world where literally every single minute is supposed to be accounted for, right? So when did you last let hours just slip by without a single goal or objective in mind? For most of us, true, unadulterated time wasting is practically a lost art. We've completely conditioned ourselves to feel incredibly guilty if we aren't producing, consuming, or somehow moving the needle forward.
to explain this a bit further, there's a really sharp contrast drawn here between sanitized time wasting and deeply, uselessly wasting time. You know what I mean? When we tell ourselves we're taking a break today, we almost always opt for the sanitized version. This is the kind of rest where you sit down and watch, say, 4 hours of video essays on castle architecture on YouTube. Sure, you're on the couch, but you tell yourself, hey, I'm learning history, I'm expanding my mind. It's a productive way to pretend you're wasting time. But we are challenged here to look at the alternative: raw, unfiltered, deeply useless time wasting.
So what does that raw time wasting actually look like? Well, the author leans into some incredible deadpan sarcasm here to paint a picture. They describe true time wasting as staring at a water stain on your ceiling until it starts to look like a disappointed pelican. I mean, just imagine that absurd imagery for a moment. That is the ultimate definition of doing absolutely nothing. There is zero educational value, zero self-improvement, absolutely no networking taking place while you analyze a ceiling stain. And yet, we are challenged to try doing exactly that today.
But here's where the reality check hits. If you actually try to just sit and stare at the ceiling for an afternoon, what happens? Well, you will inevitably feel this low hum of panic start to creep in. It's this phantom anxiety, perfectly described as the ghost of a productivity guru whispering in your ear. That ghost is there to remind you that instead of looking at a water stain, you could be, actually, scratch that, you should be, listening to a podcast on compounding interest. You could be optimizing your portfolio. You could be earning. The pressure to constantly be learning or doing something of value is just always lurking right beneath the surface. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer exhaustion of the modern self-help machine. Just think about this hyper-optimized routine. Wake up for a 5 a.m. cold plunge, write in a gratitude journal while choking down a glass of bitter green sludge, and then use your morning commute to learn Mandarin. This culture treats the human soul like a leaky radiator that just needs the right wrench to run at full efficiency. It literally expects everyone to be a marathon-running executive fueled entirely by pulverized almonds.
The exhaustion really stems from the fact that we are no longer allowed to just be average. You aren't just allowed to be a guy who is okay at accounting anymore. Simply doing your job and going home isn't enough for this hustle culture we live in. Instead, the expectation is that you have to brand yourself as a thought leader in financial optimization. You've got to have a platform, a unique perspective, a relentless drive to be exceptional. And you know, some of us are just bone-deep tired of trying to be exceptional all the time.
This need to optimize has even infected our downtime and our simple pleasures. Let's say you pick up a wholesome hobby, like baking a loaf of bread. In today's world, you aren't just allowed to bake a loaf of bread for fun. No way. You have to start a microbakery. You have to create an Instagram account and monetize your sourdough starter's emotional journey. Every hobby has to become a side hustle. Every moment of joy has to be somehow transformed into a stream of revenue. Which brings us to honestly one of the most striking observations in this entire critique. Rest has a boss now. Rest has KPIs. The very concept of rest, the one thing that was supposed to be our escape from the corporate machine, has been recruited right back into it. You don't just sleep because you're tired, you sleep so you can perform better tomorrow. You don't meditate to find peace, you meditate so you can hyper-focus on your deliverables. We have completely turned our relaxation into a performance metric.
Just think about this absolutely wild, self-defeating snowball effect. You go to sleep, but you wear a smartwatch to track it. You wake up, and the watch buzzes to inform you that your sleep quality was suboptimal. Well, great. Now you have sleep anxiety because you failed at sleeping correctly. And because you have sleep anxiety, you're going to ruin tonight's sleep. And because you ruin tonight's sleep, you ruin tomorrow's performance. By constantly trying to optimize our bodies for tomorrow's deliverables, we completely sabotage our present peace.
So, the crucial point is that we have to fundamentally rethink how we view our downtime. We get a firm, almost therapeutic reminder here. Your weekend nap does not need to justify its existence to the CEO of your psyche. Doing nothing doesn't need to make you sharper or more productive afterward to be considered worth doing. A nap is allowed to just be a nap. It doesn't need a return on investment.
And that leads us right into this beautifully empathetic line:
Sometimes nothing is just nothing, and that's allowed. It's a complete paradigm shift away from the toxic hustle culture we've been breaking down today. It's a permission slip to just let go of the guilt. You don't have to dress up your rest as recovery time for peak performance. You are fully allowed to sit in a chair, do absolutely nothing, and assign exactly zero value to that time.
Why is doing nothing so hard for us, though? Well, it really comes down to our societal obsession with the never-ending finish line. We are so obsessed with finishing things. We have this ingrained idea that once we clear the to-do list, once we get the degree, once we complete our self-improvement arc, or finally finish reading that damn book, then we can rest. But the reality is, the moment we finish one thing, we just start the next one. What happens if we just let something stay unfinished? What if the house is never entirely clean?
Letting things remain unfinished means accepting our limitations, and there's some great humor used here to make this point. It means finally admitting to yourself that, yeah, you are probably never going to understand cryptocurrency. It means accepting that you will never learn how to properly fold a fitted sheet, and it's just going to be rolled up into a messy ball in your linen closet forever. And you know what? That is completely fine. It's about looking at the massive mountain of expectations piled on your shoulders, politely tipping your hat to it, and choosing to just lie down in the grass instead.
I want to just pause for a second, slow down, and let this stark, simple statement sink in. You are not a project. You are not a renovation that needs constant updating. You are not a flawed system that requires endless tinkering, tweaking, and optimizing to be considered valuable. This is such a cathartic realization when you truly, deeply let it wash over you.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an equally powerful realization. You are not a startup. Human beings are not businesses. We are not meant to be endlessly scaled. We don't have quarterly earnings reports for our personal lives, and we definitely shouldn't measure our worth by our year-over-year growth. The intense pressure to treat yourself like a brand or a corporate entity is exactly what leads directly to burnout. Instead, we're left with this wonderfully comforting existential reality check. You are just a person on a rock, hurtling through space. When you zoom out and look at the sheer, mind-blowing scale of the universe, the anxiety about optimizing your morning routine or maximizing your daily productivity feels delightfully insignificant. It completely removes the heavy burden of having to be exceptional and allows you to just exist as a human being.
And that brings us to one final, slightly provocative thought. In a world that demands constant, extraordinary output, is making it through the week without crying in a grocery store parking lot achievement enough? I'll leave that for you to decide. Take away the guilt, forget the KPIs for your sleep, and consider that sometimes doing absolutely nothing is exactly what you need. Now go waste an afternoon.